So I'm in the middle of building a Trex Solutions no-dig driven post, 6-foot tall privacy fence, and I wanted to kind of share with everybody how it went and my lessons learned, because I couldn't find much about it on the internet. So here's a video of me start to finish building a small chunk of that fence. All right, so this one I couldn't pound because we got the eaves right here. So that's dug and set, and then we have 21 feet between there, and then we'll go 8 foot from that. So we'll have in post, line post, line post. Those will all be pounded, and we'll figure out how to build around those together. I got some special Trex donuts to go along with these super thick 5x5 rails or posts. So I'm just digging these holes maybe 3 or 4 inches deep, just so the post will settle in a little bit below grade. And also, you know, with the rocks, it just made it easier to drive the post and get those rocks out of the way. So a little bit of digging here, but not as bad as if I had to dig and set the post. So. Okay, so posts, these are for the 6-footers. I always mark the very lowest I can possibly drive it, which is 3 feet exposed from the ground. Trex wants it at least half the distance of the exterior post needs to be exposed, so 3 feet. And then this is the minimum I can possibly go. This is the frost line in Minnesota, which is 42 inches. So I have a huge 42-inch-ish gap. These are 10-foot posts. Typically you can use 8, but I was just figured I might as well over-engineer it. So I have a big gap anywhere in between these two arrows. I don't know if you can see those. I get to stop. So the further I go, the better. All right, so here I am driving these posts. Like I said, you can use 8-foot interior posts, so they're 4 in the ground and 4 out. But I had some 10-foot schedule 40 posts that I figured I might as well use, just because of the weight of the whole Trex fence, and it just made me more comfortable. Ready driver, and it worked really good. This was my first time using the Ready driver. I typically use a US hammer, but it's out for repair right now. I have Ready driver, so I have 2 on hand, but boy, it's just lighter weight and works. Just make sure your posts are plumb. Take the extra time. If your posts are in the plumb, everything else can kind of just fall into place, and mistakes can happen and you can fix them. But if your posts aren't plumb, then it just creates a huge headache for the rest of the day. The donuts they give you do have a little bit of back and forth wiggle room. So if for some reason it's a little bit out of level, you can correct that. Okay, so I'm just moving the string line here. I got 1 post in the back. I wasn't able to finish this section because I ran out of materials. The materials were back at the shop. So I just completed the front 3 sections for the homework today, just so I could kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like. I did drive this post. Same deal, just doing a little bit of digging. Another good reason to dig a little bit below grade, even on the dig and set, is you can drive your self-tapping fastener screws. I think they're about 3.5 inches or less, like 3 1/4. Drive those in through the outer post, below grade and then bury it, and then you have no exposed fasteners, which is a really finished look for. All right, posts are in. When you're driving posts, they tend to mushroom on the top. So you can use either a circ saw or, better yet, this little portable bandsaw that I have. Kind of cut that mushroom off, and then you can throw the those donuts over it. Some people put the donuts on before they drive the posts, and then they don't have to cut off the tops. Self tappers were giving me trouble. I didn't have a magnetic socket to drive those bad boys in, so it's kind of finicky. So you can see me dropping the screws, picking it up, dropping the screws, picking it up. But I got it figured out. So I just put the bottom one as close to the ground as possible and the top one as close to the top as possible to maximize the stabilization. So these are the 9-foot posts. If you're using the no dig method, they have the 7-footers, which are a little bit cheaper and work just fine. They want 74.5 inches above grade is where you cut your posts at. So 7 feet is plenty. I just originally ordered the 9-footers because I wasn't going to do the no dig method, and then things changed and I pivoted. But I did order some extra 9-footers that didn't need to be 9 feet, so that's why they're so tall initially. But see, I cut them at some point. They went on pretty smooth over those donuts. The donuts are kind of square, they kind of look like crowns, but they fit snug right over them. Those are in. Last thing you gotta do is throw a self-tapping fastener screw, 3.5 inch, in right there, below grade if you can. And make sure everything's plumb and level, and once you get that out of the way, then you're on to the next phase. Alright, so I got all my posts on. At this point you can measure, making sure that you have the exact height you need. The Stig and Set one happened to be exactly 74.5 inches above grade, so I got very lucky there because if it was any lower, and then these ones obviously had plenty of room to play with. I had a Sawzall on me, which I probably would use next time. It obviously doesn't have to be a very pretty cut. Put the post cap over it. I used my bandsaw, which is probably not the right tool for the job, but so then once I figured out that that was a good way to cut the height, I marked every single post. Cut them all down. I think I'm going to reuse those cut pieces as repurpose them as kind of a small little Trex Fence display for customers. I'm trying to sell them a fence. Diablo makes a special Trex blade. It's about 80 bucks at Home Depot. They also have a circular saw, 7.25 inch ones. They don't have the 6.5. So if you wanted to not have to lug your chop saw around, you could probably manage with that, but I figured I might as well since it's my first time. So Trex blade, 12 inches. They have a 10 inch or two. Okay, so this is me. So I cut there's an interior bottom rail that's kind of an aluminum material. So I cut that with my bandsaw, measured it and cut it. There's no angle on this one, it's pretty flat. And then you sheath over 8-foot pickets on either side of it, and that's how you build the bottom rail. So I did those separately the first time. It was a pain in the butt. And then you'll see coming up this, for the second bottom rail, I had to measure a little bit of an angle. It's basically, screw it at this point. I'm just going to put together the entire bottom rail first and then cut it all at once with the chop saw. So, and it worked out pretty well. I used some scrap pieces to kind of brace it while I found the angle. And then I put it all together, cut it to length, and they dropped right in there. There's a smaller groove and a larger groove on the interior rail. You're going to put the larger groove facing towards the ground. So remember that when you find your angle too, because you don't want to cut it the wrong way. Another thing is remember your angle that you cut for each bottom rail, because you're going to transfer that same angle to the top rail when you cut it later on. And you don't want to have to measure your angle with the top rail because it's super heavy. So it's better to just have it either memorized or write it down. So this is just a little 5-degree angle, same cut on both sides. Dropped right in, I was happy with it. Second one, same thing. It's about 7-degree angle, so measured it again. I just used one picket to get my angle and to get my measurement. That way it's just a little bit lighter weight. And then I put it all together. Make sure everything's flush. Here comes the homeowner, John. Super nice guy. He was just kind of curious how everything was going, and I had told him already that this would be my first Trex fence, so he was kind of asking me, how I liked working with it, and I was telling him basically how user-friendly it is and how heavy it is. He was asking what the pickets look like, so I brought him over there, showed him a few pickets. He was pumped about it, and then he was like, all right, I'm going to let you kind of do your own thing. So he left, I got back to it, dropped in this rail. It was the perfect cut, but I had to trench out some of those rocks because the ground was a little deep. Once I got those trenched out, dropped it right in and perfectly. Did the same thing for the side there. There wasn't any angle, so it was an easy cut. This will go a lot quicker once I do my next section because it's just a little bit of a learning curve. Make sure you're doing everything right. You don't want to waste any of this material. It's super expensive stuff. So, all right. So here's the fun part, and you can see this on the Trex website. None of this is related to no dig. This is just how you build each seclusion fence. But you're going to cut that first picket to height right below the bracket on the top, and then the rest of the pickets you leave high. Click them in, you alternate them. On the website, they zip in the picket to each rail before they assemble the rest of the pickets. Problem with that is you don't know what orientation that final picket is going to end up as. Is it going to be facing inside or outside? So when you have custom sized sections, you have to do that last. So you figure out what orientation it's going to be, then you can zip it in. Now I have both side pickets cut below the bracket and screwed into the post. The rest of the pickets are just clicked together and evenly spaced. And then the second picket in on either side of the post, I will secure it to the picket that is screwed into the post. Keeps everything nice and snug and even. Then you measure again, and you're going to cut those top rails. The top rails are super beefy. Kind of an awkward cut, but they grab everything really nice and they're not going anywhere. And then after you put that top rail on, you're going to screw it down, which I haven't done yet, but screw it down and basically secure it all together. So another lesson learned here, I do the same thing. I screw in this first picket facing outwards. And then after that, I'll start alternating pickets 2 at a time. I put them in until I get to the other post. Notice here, I got gravity working against me the entire time. So when you're working on a slope, make sure to secure that picket to the top side of the slope. Screw that into the post and then build it downward. That way it doesn't collapse every time you walk away and grab a couple of pickets. So I cut this one to height. Once I figure out what orientation it's going to be, screw it in, 3 screws, and then you're going to do the same thing, assemble it all together. Screw picket number 2 into picket number 1, either side. And then once I'm happy with that, cut that top rail. So you got to measure it. And also make sure you remember that angle you found on the bottom rail. Transfer it to the top. Cut it a little long if you have to, just in case mismeasure. You don't want to waste any of this material. Drop it in. I put the post caps on way too early in this project, but I was just really excited about them, so I kept having to take them off, put them back on. So there's section number 2. One more lesson learned here, which will come into play later, is you'll have to do a little trimming of the pickets when you're on a slope for the top rail to settle. So here I am, lesson learned, building from the top of the hill down. It went a lot smoother. And when you're screwing in your screws, it's kind of a tough angle too, going into the post through the first picket. So if you have some kind of extension bit, which they show in the Trex video, that would probably work a lot better. So as soon as this part of the project was over, first thing I did was go to the hardware store and get extension bits so I can zip it in at a little bit more of an angle. Okay, so that's what I was talking about. I was like, oh, it's just not, it doesn't feel like it's settling right. So then looking just like a vinyl fence, it doesn't settle, the top rail doesn't settle in the right spot unless you trim pickets a little bit. So I marked basically the pickets at the top of those bracket lines and shot a line from one to the other, and then just trim the top of the ears there. Top rail dropped in perfectly after that. And then I looked at it again. I go, oh, wait a second. Now this middle one looks off. So I did the same thing, do a little bit lesser of extreme. Middle one, took my Sawzall, trimmed a little bit on the top there. It was about 90 degrees, and I was about done holding the Sawzall over. Anyway, so that top rail on the second section drops in, and then I look at the first section and I go, wow, that just looks like it could use it. I trimmed a couple of those pickets. That top rail, so then it looked good, and then I put on the caps, and that was about it. Down some kind of synopsis of the lessons learned here. One thing is it's super heavy. All the material is very heavy, for better or for worse. Very durable, but it will wear you down, especially on a hot day. It's very expensive. It's probably the most expensive fence you can buy by a long shot, but customers absolutely love it if they can afford it. The company is great to work with. The material can take 3 to 5 weeks, in my experience, to arrive. So keep that in mind when you make your promises to your customers. And then you'll have to pick it up at a local supplier, unless you have a warehouse where they can drop it off, and you can have access to your own forklift. They'll drop it off for you. Mounting the brackets can be kind of tedious, and it goes faster if you pre-drill the holes for those screws on the brackets. Next time I'll probably cut a jig to help measure down from the top and make that bracket mounting process a little easier. I talked about assemble pickets from the top of a slope downwards in order to not have them collapse on you when you're trying to sort out screwing in those side pickets. And then you're going to have to cut a straight line, just like vinyl. If you've ever done a vinyl fence, you're going to have to basically trim the ears off those pickets on a slope, especially the higher ones, so that the top rail can land on the brackets. They will give you some fasteners, some self-tappers with those donuts, and you're going to need either a 3/8 or a 10 millimeter socket for the self-tappers. It's definitely more durable than vinyl, but it does still scuff and scratch, so be gentle with it. Don't swing it around. Don't push and pull it on any sort of concrete or anything like that. I ordered 52 donuts for, I have 20 posts that I was doing. So I thought, okay, I'll order 52 donuts. They're super expensive, 15 bucks each. Turns out it was 52 packages of donuts, so I got 2 donuts per package, so I got 104 donuts, so just keep that in mind when you order. But the customers are super happy with it. It's got a very good warranty. It's easy to work with. I love the click-in method. It looks great from both sides. There's absolutely no hardware or fasteners that are exposed. Yeah, and it's a really good product, and I can't wait to build it again. I didn't get a chance to build a Trex gate, so I can't really share an experience with you on that, but it seems like it would be pretty straightforward. Just keep in mind that it's probably going to be very heavy, and you're probably going to have to reinforce the hinge side more than you would on a standard vinyl fence.